The NFL showcases the best athletes in the world, but some stars fall harder than anyone could imagine. From Kellen Winslow II, convicted of multiple crimes.
Winslow got nailed for rape and shamming himself in front of ladies. Then you got Henry Ruggs III, who got all liquored up behind the wheel and caused a tragedy that'll break your heart. Ruggs got himself tangled up in a fatal wreck, and the law was fixing to slap him with a felony DUI charge that's stickier than molasses. These are the ball players swapping gridiron glory for iron bars. Take Chad Wheeler, big ol' offensive tackle, played his college ball at USC before suiting up for the Giants and the Seahawks. Born back on January 19, 1994, folks reckoned Wheeler was a blue-chip prospect straight out of high school, strong as an ox. He made first-team All-Pac-12 at USC, but his time there was rougher than a gravel road concussions, a torn ACL in 2014, and injuries that scared the scouts off. Had a run-in with the law in 2015, too. Police had to pump him full of beanbag rounds just to settle him down before sending him for a head check. Despite all them red flags waving, Wheeler managed to sneak into the NFL in 2017 as an undrafted free agent. The New York Giants took a chance on him, and he earned his keep, even starting at right tackle come 2018. When the Giants cut him loose in 2019 over injuries, Wheeler moseyed up to Seattle, joining the practice squad and playing here and there through the 2020 season. But the music stopped in January 2021. Up in Kent, Washington, on the 23rd, Wheeler beat his girlfriend in a domestic dispute that was uglier than sin. The sheriffs say the whole nasty business went down right inside Wheeler's own apartment. The poor gal locked herself in the bathroom and dialed 911, scared she was meeting her maker. Cops found Wheeler standing there, calm as a Sunday morning. They slapped the cuffs on him and hit him with 3 felonies: first-degree domestic violence assault, domestic violence, unlawful imprisonment, and fighting arrest. He posted $400,000 bail, but the Seahawks dropped him quicker than a hot horseshoe. Wheeler claimed he was stepping away from the game to get his head right, but the wheels of justice kept on turning. He pleaded not guilty on February 1st, 2021, starting a long fight, but on November 9th, 2023, a jury looked him in the eye and found him guilty. The judge ruled he caused some serious bodily harm, and the prosecutors made sure that felony charge stuck to him like burrs on a saddle blanket. He got sentenced to 6.5 years in the slammer, and he's sitting in a Washington state prison right this very minute. Moving on, we got a story that'll tear you up. Henry Ruggs III, who drove drunk and did a deed so dark it don't bear thinking about. Ruggs was a wide receiver for the Raiders for 2 seasons before trading his uniform for prison blues. Born January 24, 1999, down in Montgomery, Alabama. Boy was faster than a scalded dog, running a 10.5800-meter dash, had 20 colleges begging him to sign, even though he only played 2 years of high school ball. He picked Alabama and became a blur on that field, racking up 24 touchdowns, 3rd most in school history. He strutted into the 2020 NFL draft looking like the prettiest horse in the stable, ran a 4.2740 pure speed. Raiders snatched him up 12th overall, the very first receiver off the board. Showed some spark his rookie year, and in 2021 he had 469 yards, but it all went black on November 2nd, 2021. 3:39 in the morning, Nevada. Ruggs is in his Corvette doing 156 miles per hour, flying like a bat out of hell right before the crash. His blood alcohol was 0.16, one more than double the legal limit. He was 3 sheets to the wind. He plowed into the back of a Toyota driven by young Tina Tintor. That car burst into flames, and Lord have mercy, Tina and her dog didn't make it out. Ruggs and his gal survived the wreck, walking away with just some bumps and bruises. Soon as he left the hospital, they threw him in the Clark County Jail, charged with deadly DUI. The Raiders cut him loose before the sun set. Lawyers started squabbling in court, trying to get that blood test thrown out on a technicality. Prosecutors wanted a deal so he wouldn't walk free. In the end, Ruggs pleaded guilty to felony DUI causing death and manslaughter. On August 9, 2023, the judge gave him 3 to 10 years in the pen. He can ask for parole come 2026. Next up is Kellen Winslow II, a former tight end who's spending his days in a cell for some truly awful crimes against women. Born out in San Diego, son of the legendary Kellen Winslow, he had some mighty big shoes to fill. Starred at Miami, unanimous All-American, and won the Mackey Award as the best tight end in the land. Browns took him 6th overall in 2004. He bounced from Cleveland to Tampa Bay, New England, and the Jets. Made the Pro Bowl in 07, but he busted his leg and tore his knee up in a fool motorcycle wreck. Last played in 2013, but tried to sneak back in later. But by 2014, the law caught him with drugs. Real trouble started in June 2018. He got arrested for sneaking into a mobile home park looking for trouble. A few days later, they hauled him in again for kidnapping and assault. Prosecutors said he preyed on the vulnerable homeless folks and older ladies, even had a cold case from 2003 with an unconscious teenage girl. He made bail, but they dragged him back to the Hoosgow in 2019 for actin' lewd and hurtin' an elderly woman. First trial in June 2019 nailed him for mistreatment and flashin' folks. The rest of the charges hit a dead end with a hung jury, but Winslow knew the walls were closing in. Come November 2019, he struck a bargain with the DA, admitting he assaulted an unconscious 17-year-old and beat down a 54-year-old hitchhiker. That plea deal was his saving grace, the only thing keeping him from rotting in a concrete box until his dying day. By 2021, the gavel finally came down, slamming Winslow with 14 years hard time for his wicked deeds. His lawyers tried to spin a yarn about brain damage and CTE, but the judge wasn't buying what they were selling. These days, as of 2023, Kellen Winslow II is cooling his heels at the California Correctional Institution in Tehachapi, paying the price for his sins. Now, shift your gaze to this next character, a ball player who traded his jersey for a jumpsuit after plotting to snuff out a millionaire. Enter Eric Naposki. Born up in Tuckahoe, New York, this linebacker bounced around high schools before snagging a ticket to play at the University of Connecticut. He had a falling out with the coaching staff and packed his bags, but he eventually circled back to snag that sheepskin. He scraped his way into the NFL in 1988 as an undrafted free agent, sipping coffee with the Patriots, Colts, Jets, and Cowboys, but never staying long enough to get comfortable. His real glory days were across the pond in the World League, where he spent 4 seasons with the Barcelona Dragons, helping them hoist the World Bowl trophy in 1997. But let's rewind to December 15th, 1994. Bill McLaughlin was gunned down inside his gated fortress in Newport Beach. For 15 long winters, the law couldn't put a name to the killer. It wasn't until 2009 that the long arm of the law finally caught up with Naposki in Connecticut, slapping him in cuffs for the murder. The prosecutors painted a picture of a deadly duo, Naposki and McLaughlin's own lady friend, Nanette Johnston. Turns out, she was stepping out on the millionaire with Naposki, and they had their eyes on a big payday. Johnston was fixin' to inherit over $2.5 million in insurance and savings if McLaughlin kicked the bucket. She was running his books, living in his mansion, and playing house with Naposki on the side. The pieces fit together when folks realized Naposki was working security at a bar just a stone's throw from the crime scene, giving him the perfect chance to slip away and do the deed. Now, they didn't have a smoking gun. No fingerprints, no DNA, not a single soul who saw him pull the trigger. It was all circumstantial, a puzzle put together piece by piece. But in July 2011, an Orange County jury saw enough to nail him for first-degree murder, tagging on special circumstances for doing it for greed and using a piece. He was staring down the barrel of the death penalty, but the state decided to show mercy. In August 2012, they locked him up for life with zero chance of ever seeing the sun as a free man again. Johnston got the same fate, thrown in the slammer for good. To this day, Naposki swears up and down he didn't do it. He keeps hollering that the 15-year wait to arrest him meant he lost the evidence that could have proved he was somewhere else. The courts ain't listening, though. In 2014, they tossed his appeal out. Today, Eric Naposki is rotting at California State Prison Corcoran, serving a life term with no hope of parole. Next up on the docket is Robert McCune, a linebacker who decided to orchestrate a massive fraud ring instead of playing by the rules. McCune is currently sitting in a federal pen, serving a 5-year stretch for running a healthcare scam that roped in dozens of former players. Born and bred in Mobile, Alabama, McCune was a standout at LaFleur High. Before he ever chased NFL dreams, he served his country for 3 years in the National Guard, deployed over in Korea and Kuwait. He eventually landed at Louisville for college ball, where he became the quarterback of the defense and earned himself some shiny all-conference honors. The big leagues came calling in 2005 when the Washington Redskins picked him up in the 5th round. He rode the bench most of that rookie year, seeing action in just 5 games and a couple of playoff scraps, mostly on special teams. He became a journeyman after that, bouncing between Miami, Baltimore, and Cleveland without making much noise. When the NFL doors closed, he headed north to the Canadian Football League, suiting up for the Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts. Up in Toronto, he found his groove again, leading the defense and helping the squad capture the 100th Grey Cup in 2012. But the trouble started brewing long after he hung up his cleats. From June 2017 to April 2018, he ran a slick game on the Gene Upshaw Health Plan, a fund meant to help retired players pay their doctor bills. McCune filed 68 bogus claims for high-dollar gear stuff like hyperbaric oxygen chambers and ultrasound machines. The catch? None of that stuff was ever bought. He filed claims for 51 other players, and half of them never saw a dime or a device. All told, McCune and his gang tried to siphon off nearly $2.9 million from the pot. The feds caught wind of the scheme, and on December 12, 2019, they slapped McCune with charges of wire fraud, healthcare fraud, and conspiracy. At first, he tried to play innocent, but he eventually folded. In September 2021, he pled guilty to the whole mess, including identity theft. Come February 2022, the judge handed him 5 years in federal prison. 13 other guys got caught up in the net, but McCune was the ringleader calling the shots. Right now, Robert McCune is behind federal bars, paying his debt to society. Moving along, we got a story that's darker than a moonless night. Kellen Ware Jr., a tight end who took his girlfriend's life in a way nobody saw coming. He played for the Redskins and the Niners. He wasn't exactly a household name, but he touched the grass in 16 NFL games, living a dream most folks only imagine. But once the lights went out on his career, he spiraled into a world of violence and dope. Truth be told, his rap sheet started way back. In 2002, back when he was a Husky at the University of Washington, he already had a mark on his record for assault. After football, he couldn't stay out of handcuffs. In 2010, they got him for theft and running from the law after a brawl. By 2018, he was doing a 2-year stint for dealing drugs. But 2021, that was the year all hell broke loose. On April 19, 2021, the law pulled him over in Magnolia, Texas. They found a stash of drugs, a loaded AK-47, and a 9mm pistol. As a convicted felon, he had no business carrying that hardware. They hauled him in, but he bonded out the very next day. Less than a month later, his lady, 29-year-old Taylor Pomaski, vanished off the face of the earth. Folks next door heard a ruckus loud enough to wake the dead on the night of April 25th. After that commotion, poor Taylor Pomaski vanished like smoke in the wind, never seen drawing breath again. Didn't take long for the law to set their sights on Ware, especially after he went and broke his bail rules, landing himself back in the slammer come June. Winter rolled around, and on December 10, 2021, investigators stumbled on human remains out in northern Harris County. They were burned bad, but the science folks confirmed it was Taylor Pomaski. By July 2022, the grand jury indicted Ware for murder and tampering with her corpse. The details were ugly enough to curdle milk. She'd been beat with something heavy and then set ablaze. Ware sat stewing in jail while the case dragged on, already locked up for guns and drugs. Finally, in May 2025, he quit fighting and owned up to killing Pomaski. To save his hide from a life sentence, he took a deal for 30 years in state prison. Now, shifting gears, let's talk about another ball player who decided running a crooked scheme was the way to go. Gather round for the tale of John Robert Leake. He was an NFL linebacker who tossed the pigskin for the Tennessee Titans, Atlanta Falcons, and them Green Bay Packers for a hot minute. Born and bred in Plano, Texas, Leake played his college ball at Clemson from 2000 to 2003 before sneaking into the league as an undrafted free agent in 2004. He bounced around practice squads and suited up for just a handful of games betwixt 2005 and 2006. When the cheering stopped, Leake went into business, but it turned out to be pure snake oil. From June 2015 to March 2020, this fella ran a long con Ponzi scheme, promising folks riches that weren't never coming. He spun tall tales about striking it, rich in fancy real estate, and digging for gold way up in Alaska and over in Ghana. Not a lick of it was real. Leake sweet-talked folks into handing over big piles of cash, swearing on a stack of Bibles he'd pay him back with interest piled high. The man lied like a rug, claimed he had millions of his own skin in the game, acted like a big shot, and pretended he had the goods to back it all up. To make it look all proper, he handed out fancy papers promising fixed returns. But the second that money hit his hand, investing was the last thing on his mind. Instead, he blew it all living high on the hog, paying off credit cards, rent, car notes, and throwing money away at the gambling tables. He'd rob Peter to pay Paul, using new money to send fake interest checks to old victims, just to keep the charade spinning. All told, he swindled over $8.1 million from 6 poor souls. He left him hanging with over $5.3 million in losses, all built on a foundation of lies and make-believe deals. The feds weren't amused, charging him with wire fraud and washing dirty money. Come January 2025, a judge hammered him with 30 months in the pen and ordered him to pay back $5,314,500. All right, brace yourselves. Next up is an NFL player who did some truly wicked things to young women. We're talking about Darren Sharper. Darren Mallory Sharper was a safety who spent 14 long seasons patrolling the field for the Packers, Vikings, and the Saints down in New Orleans. Man was a beast on the grass. 5 Pro Bowls, 2-time All-Pro, and sitting 6th all-time for picking off passes with a heap of defensive touchdowns to boot. Raised out in Virginia, he was a sharp kid at Hermitage High, tearing it up in the classroom and on the gridiron alike. He played his college ball at William and Mary, setting records left and right with 24 career interceptions and over 1,000 yards returning punts. The Packers snatched him up in the second round of the '97 draft, and he climbed to the top of the mountain, even grabbing a Super Bowl 44 ring with the Saints in 2010. But off the field, the man had a heart full of darkness. Starting around 2011, he began assaulting women at parties and clubs from California to Arizona, Louisiana to Nevada. He'd slip knockout drugs into their drinks, mixing it with booze, so they couldn't fight back or remember enough to nail him. Real cowardly stuff. The law reckons there were at least 9 victims, though folks around town say the number could be as high as 16. He didn't work alone neither. Had 2 cronies, Brandon Liciardi and Eric Nunez, helping him do his dirt. They both got caught and thrown in the clink right alongside him. In 2014, the law finally caught up with him. He was facing heavy charges across multiple states, including aggravated assault and plotting to push drugs. Knowing he was cornered, he entered pleas of guilty or no contest in every state he terrorized: California, Arizona, Louisiana, and Nevada. The judge handed down 20 years in state prison and 18 years 4 months federal time, running side by side, plus a $20,000 fine. He's got to register as an offender for the rest of his days, too. That nasty business put a bullet in his post-football life. He'd been talking ball on TV, but that dried up faster than a puddle in August. Once hailed as a legend, Sharper is now branded a serial rapist, rotting away at FCI Elkton. Don't expect him out till late 2028. Now, this last one hits hard. We got an NFL player locking away for the murder of a 5-year-old child. Name's Cierre Wood. Cierre Marcel Wood was a running back with a future that looked bright, until it ended in tragedy and a prison cell. He shone bright at Notre Dame, then bounced around the NFL with the Texans, Patriots, Ravens, Seahawks, and Bills before heading north to the Canadian League. Growing up in Oxnard, California, he was a holy terror at Santa Clara High. Junior year alone, he rushed for over 2,600 yards and 34 touchdowns. He was a USA Today All-American, the cream of the crop, and he picked the Fightin' Irish of Notre Dame over the big dogs out west. By 2011, he was the main man in the backfield, galloping for over 1,100 yards and finding the end zone 9 times. But trouble started brewing early. Got suspended for 2 games in 2012 for breaking rules, and went undrafted in 2013 before signing with the Houston Texans. His pro career was shakier than a leaf in a storm, short, unstable, and full of getting cut from the roster. He never could live up to the hype from his school days. Bad luck and injuries, like a torn ACL with the Bills, stopped him dead in his tracks. But things took a sinister turn in 2019. On April 10th, He and his girlfriend, Amy Taylor, got arrested in Vegas for the death of her little girl, Larea Davis. The details are heart-wrenching. That poor baby suffered extreme bruising and trauma, allegedly beat and forced to do workouts that'd break a grown man, just for being a little heavy. The whole town was left with their jaws on the floor, horrified that a man who used to have the world at his feet could do something so evil. Back in 2024, Wood copped an Alford plea for second-degree murder and mistreating a youngin', catching a life sentence with a chance to see daylight in 12 years and 4 months. Now, on the flip side, we got another NFL fella who's looking at a 41-year stretch for running dope. Talking about Daryl Henley. Daryl Keith Henley was shooting up the ranks like a firework. Played corner for them LA Rams after his skills at UCLA snagged him them All-American honors back in 1988. Picked up in the second round of the '89 draft, didn't take long for Henley to own the Rams' backfield, playing 76 games and snatching 12 interceptions out of the sky. But the choices he made off the grass cast a mighty long shadow over his game. By the early 90s, he was knee-deep in a drug ring that stretched clear across the nation. Running things right out of his house in Brea, California, he used his big name to rope folks in, even getting former Rams cheerleader Tracy Donahoe to haul suitcases full of contraband across the country. His dirty dealings forced him to sit out the last 11 games of the '93 season, but get this, he still pocketed his $600,000 paycheck. Even though he popped back up with the Rams for a hot minute in '94 on a tight leash from the court, his contract eventually ran dry. Where he could have been ink a multi-million-dollar deal, his whole future went down the drain faster than rain in a gully. Come March of '95, the law came down hard. Henley and 4 of his buddies, uncle included, got nailed for conspiracy and possession. That gavel banging down was the start of a long, hard tumble from football glory straight to wearing inmate stripes. While he was cooling his heels in an LA jail waiting on his sentence, Henley decided to dig his hole even deeper. Feds found out he was fixin' to put a hit on his trial judge, Gary L. Taylor, and that witness, Tracy Donahoe, pulling strings from behind bars and greasing a guard's palm to sneak in a cell phone. That move rattled the whole courthouse and showed folks he was meaner than a rattlesnake, even when locked up tight. In back-to-back hearings in March '97, they slapped him with 41 years and 3 months in maximum security, making sure he won't breathe free air till he's an old man in his 60s. Judge James Edelman called him a hardened crook who needed locking down round the clock, and the prosecutors said the time was heavy but fit the bill for the sheer gall of his crimes. Y'all holler at us in the comments with your 2 cents. And before you mosey on, smack that like button and hitch your wagon to NFL facts so you don't miss the next roundup.